Folks, I'm gonna be completely honest with you today. The more I ride motorcycles, the less I want a 1000cc super bike. Now let me explain. I've been riding bikes for a long time, 10 years now almost. I've ridden 180 different motorcycles. I've given away 52 different bikes, I believe. And the more time I spend on bikes, a lot of different type of bikes, you know, mini bikes, beginner bikes, intermediate middleweight bikes like this MT-09 SP that I'm on today. I've ridden BMW S1000RRs, even the absolute pinnacle Ducati Panigale V4R on track, on road. And I keep coming back to this idea that I'm like, I think we've all collectively deluded ourselves that the 1000cc category is somehow, you know, a category that everyone should aspire to. You should climb the power ladder and everyone should end up on a 1000cc bike. And honestly, they're really not that fun to ride. They're a handful. They're so heavy, they're so fast, they're just a lot, you know. The comparison I could make to you, if you're kind of getting into this world of motorcycling, you know, you're thinking about getting your first bike and you want to climb the power category, and you're like, man, you know, one day I'm gonna own a full zoot fancy leader bike. You know, it's like owning an F1 car for the street. I mean, the difference between a production Panigale V4R and, you know, the bike that Alvaro Bautista or Nicolo Bulega races in World Superbike, it's not that much, you know. You know, there's some go fast parts, there's ergonomic adjustments, you know, there's tires, you know, slight things to make it ultra competitive in that category, but fundamentally it's not that far off from a full zoot race bike, because they make them to go racing. And, you know, racing motorcycles just don't translate that well to the road. And for me personally, the last leader bike that I owned was the BMW S1000RR as a giveaway motorcycle. I've actually never personally owned a 1000cc sport bike for myself. I suppose you could count, you know, like I had an H2 and then I had a Turbo Hayabusa, but those are almost so comically fast that they're not really like a 1000cc bike. And ergonomically, a Hayabusa is super comfortable. Let's get a little... And the reason I keep coming back to this idea that I'm like, I don't think I'm ever going to own one for myself personally, and I don't really think they're all that, is that the naked bike category nowadays is so freaking good. It's so good. 10 years ago, this FZ09, or MT-09 as it's called now, it was this kind of like confused, super motard, weird, like, you know, hodgepodge motorcycle. You know, the intermediate middleweight category wasn't nearly as fleshed out as it is nowadays. You know, very few motorcycles used proper frames on those bikes. You know, the old FZ09's frame was really weird and not very rigid laterally. I think the only bike that really stood out to me in that category back in the day was the Street Triple, because it had a Daytona frame. It was a proper, you know, super sport turned naked bike type of thing. But man, nowadays you are so spoiled for choice for amazing motorcycles that work really well on street and can dice it up on track. Because again, the more I ride, the less I want something that's making 200 horsepower and that's geared to the moon. You know, it's not very fun if you have a motorcycle to stay in first and second gear the whole time and have to really baby the machine. You know, that's what the people really talk about, the leader bikes, is when you're riding them in places like I do that actually have twists and turns and, you know, are a little bit tighter, a little bit more bumpy, you don't really want something that at the flick of the wrist can do 120 miles an hour. It's actually way more fun to have something that can absorb the bumps, and you can actually use first through fourth gear, even fifth gear sometimes on these machines. And even on track, you know, you guys know that I'm a pretty dedicated track boy. I've gone racing, I've done so many track days, I've ridden at like 14 different racetracks, you know, had a lot of fun, did endurance bike racing with the 400s, and even on a track, I still find that the 600 class is more suited to me and my style. And that's not to say that that's for everybody, right? I know some people really love going on track with the absolute pinnacle of a leader bike, because still to this day, a lot of motorcycles, in the leader bike category have way more advanced electronic controls, traction control, rider aids, all those sorts of things. And we're at the point now where just now, the middleweight category has some TC and some electronics and stuff. You could argue that you don't need that as much with the middleweight bikes, but for a leader bike, it's pretty much uncontrollable if you go out and try to ride a 200 plus horsepower motorcycle, unless you're, a world superbike level talent, like a Toprak, It's just not going to work out for you. And so you actually need all those electronics to control it. And some people like the feeling, that kind of super spaceship feeling. I remember when I took the V4R out on track, it just felt like it was it was making me go a lot faster than I had any right to go. The whole thing was working in harmony. And that's something you don't get in the middleweight category, but it's virtually impossible. It is virtually impossible to actually feel that on the street. And so that's what I was saying is, like, I don't think I'll ever own a 1000cc bike for regular road riding, because you can't approach the performance limits on those machines, and it's really not fun being on something so uncomfortable, so hot, so ungainly, so fast, all the time, And maybe it's because I'm getting older, I'm turning 32 this year. That's put a little bit of traffic here. Turning 32 this year, that's certainly not something that you should scoff at, but I don't know. I don't think the age makes as much of a difference. I really think it's the experience. So since you can't approach the performance limits of these machines on street safely at all, it begs the question, do you really need all that power? And I think that if you are roll racing your buddies, you're a highway guy, all that stuff, sure, I guess it makes sense to try to have, all that power on tap. But for the vast majority of riders, 120, 130 is more than enough. And I personally think that, you look back in the 90s, right? Leader bikes, Honda CBR, Fireblade from back in the 90s, I think they made like 125, 130 horsepower. And a lot of people consider that to be like, whoa, that's a ton of power. That's a lot of power to go out there and have some fun with a motorcycle. And I really think that we've pushed the envelope so far that I'm on this motorcycle now, right? This 890cc 3-cylinder motorcycle that makes damn near 120 horsepower and 70 foot-pounds of torque. That's a lot. I don't know why you would ever want to go further past that, especially considering that it's hard to even use those things. So ergonomically, there's a big difference too, right? Like, if you're going to be out riding these motorcycles, you can definitely train yourself to ride a leader bike, working your core, getting your wrist a little bit lighter. You can certainly get used to that position, that feeling. But I have to ask myself, like, why would I want to get used to that? Wouldn't I just want to ride something that's just simply more comfortable and that I can have more fun on? And the answer is, yeah, I think I'd just rather ride something more comfortable that I can have more fun on, because I don't want to be balled up in this little thing, And like I said, turning 32 this year, the mindset and the priorities have changed slightly. When I was a younger man in my early 20s, I would have said, oh, it's a super sport or nothing, baby. That's all I want. And I totally get that. And that's the flip side of the coin, is I think that's why you see, it's pretty rare to see someone in their 40s and 50s who is still riding a super bike, I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm sure some of you is watching right now and gonna say, oh yeah, that's me. I'm 48 years old and I ride my Gictor Thao every weekend. That's awesome. I don't have anything to say other than I hope you have your chiropractor on speed dial. Or let me know your yoga routines and I'll stretch my back to make sure that it can accommodate something like that when I'm 48 years old. I think there's a reason why a lot of experienced motorcyclists end up in that place. They end up in the sort of 600 to 900cc category, something a little more upright, more comfortable. That's why ADV bikes are so popular, right? I just described the entire ADV category, the middleweight category anyways. I think it's why people end up in that place, because it simply makes sense, Another thing to consider too is leader bikes are high on the list of expenses and consumables. Typically you spoon on, hypersport tires on these machines. They last like 3,000 miles. You got to get another set of tires. Even if you went sport touring, they still probably only last 8,000 because the amount of power those things put out. Because the more power a motorcycle has, the more it's going to wear and tear on it, right? And, leader bike insurance is way more expensive than regular motorcycle insurance. And granted, I know for a lot of you out there, and I'm kind of in a similar boat where I'm like, a couple extra $100 here and there, it's not a big deal to me. But especially if you are that kind of 40-plus-year-old guy, I don't think that anybody in their 40s or 50s who's well established in life is going to be like, oh no, this motorcycle I love is going to cost an extra $120 a month. Oh no, I can't afford it. But it's something to consider, like if you're younger, especially if you're under 25, you better be ready for some serious sticker shock when you go and insure your leader bike. I've seen guys on our Discord server, they just get quotes because they're like, I'm thinking about getting S1000RR, and they get a quote and they're like, oh my god, it's going to be more than the payment every month on the bike to insure this thing. And I've certainly seen that, I've seen guys spending $300-400 on the payment every month on the bike, and then the insurance is the same price because it's going to cost them $5,000 a month, or $5,000 a year to insure the damn thing. So I just feel like you got to really think about that when you start thinking about getting a leader bike.
I am beyond excited to finally share this bike with you guys, our brand new MT09 SP giveaway bike. I've wanted to do one of these bikes as a giveaway for years, and the stars finally aligned. This thing is a riot to ride, and I think it's one of the very best street motorcycles you can buy right now. Ample power, awesome tech, and a spicy triple-cylinder power plant. Lock in 20x entries for every dollar you spend when you pick up a hat, a t-shirt, or anything else you want over at yammynoob.co. And as always, members have the ability to earn entries automatically and stack them up to apply to future giveaways. We're not slowing down towards the end of the year with some amazing 3-day giveaways and some outrageously spicy top shelf bikes. Head over to yammynoob.co and get started today.
And I really think that the motorcycling industry has sold us this idea of climbing the progression ladder, right? Climbing that power progression. And again, if you look back in prior generations, the top echelon motorcycle made 120 horsepower. We've got to the point now where everyone's like, oh yeah, you gotta go get the 190 horsepower bike, the 200 horsepower bike. The Ducati's like, yeah, let's make a 217 horsepower naked bike because that makes sense. And I really think it's just wanton consumerism. The diminishing returns on motorcycle technology is certainly apparent nowadays. Like, yes, this MT09 is absolutely fantastic. This is a really damn good motorcycle. The fueling is correct. The throttle response is correct. It's got cruise control. It's got advanced rider safety features. It's a really, really sweet bike. But I could have just as much fun on a Yamaha FZ6 or an old school MT09, an old school Street Triple. The margins for how much better these bikes are nowadays are really diminishing. And like I said, for the leader bike category particularly, the only reason they have so much tech is because it's unrideable, And do you honestly think that if you buy a leader bike, you're going to be faster on this set of roads than if you just had an MT09 or even an FZ07, an old school one? Do you genuinely believe that that's going to make that much of a difference? Cover the brakes, cover the brakes. Nice. It's not, a capable rider on a Ninja 400 on roads like this will keep up with a leader bike. That absolutely. You're not going to magically become a faster, better rider just because you have a faster bike. On the contrary, a lot of riders actually ride slower when they have a big, fast leader bike because it terrifies them and they can't open up the gas and it's heavy and it's cumbersome. And usually on a lighter weight, more flickable bike, you end up being faster anyways, It's why we always tell riders on track to start with a smaller bike. Start with the Ninja 400, develop those fundamentals, you'll whip that bike around, have so much fun with it. Then when you go to the bigger bike, larger category, you'll say, oh, I got this in the bag, I can handle this machine because I know those fundamentals. And it works the same for street riding too. It works exactly the same for street riding. You want to be on a motorcycle that you feel very confident with, and a lot of the times that's a smaller bike. And I really think as well, when you are a more experienced motorcyclist and you are able to really wrestle a motorcycle around, it's really fun to take a bike that has a little less power and really wrangle it, you know, and feel like you got total dominion over it. I don't really like riding leader bikes because it always feels like they're riding me. I feel like I'm just atop of the machine and I'm just hanging on for dear life, you know? I'm gonna be totally honest, we had that S1000RR. I didn't really catch myself wanting to get the keys and ride the thing, you know? With this giveaway bike, this MT-09 SP, I really find myself being like, oh man, like let me go sneak out for a quick ride, you know? Let me go get the keys for the MT-09 and go and take it for a spin. And that's certainly evidence in the fact that I've put on more miles on this bike than not any other giveaway bike. I think the ZH2 I did the most amount of miles with. But I think I put on like 800 or 900 miles on this thing. And that's testament to the fact that it's simply more fun to ride, you know? So guys, I think that's gonna wrap up my thoughts on why I probably won't ever own a 1000cc bike. Why the more time that I spend on motorcycles, the less I want a 1000cc bike. You know, there's times nowadays where I really just want a little TTR, something just so simple and rudimentary to just goof around and have fun with. And yeah, I don't know. I don't think the 1000cc is the be-all end-all of power, you know? It's not the be-all end-all of motorcycling. I certainly think the power progression ladder is just a bit of consumerism coming your way. So I hope you guys enjoyed this quick little vlog. Hope you had some fun. Leave me a comment down below if you think that 1000cc bikes are worth it. You ride them every day, all the time. Or are you a more experienced rider and you said, you know what, I really don't see the purpose in those sorts of machines. I really don't think I need to go out and own such a ridiculously capable motorcycle. All that being said, thanks so much for checking out today's video. I'll catch you guys in the next one. See you later.
All right, we're getting some feedback that our outros are a little weird. We had the Rossi amniotic fluid one, a couple oddball ones here and there where I pretend like you're dreaming, but I'm not actually pretending. You are dreaming. And you should probably wake up. Wake up! Kyle! It's not real! But you know what is real? MT-09 SP giveaway. YamiNoob.co. Click the link down below. You know what to do. It's the best way to support the show. But if you need time to think about it, watch this next video. If I can't convince you right here with this.